welcome to Axel Arigato Talks. I'm delighted to be joined today by Willy Ndatira. He is a writer, creative consultant, and I think a cultural connoisseur.
Thank you.
Very welcome. And he's also behind one of my favourite Instagram accounts, William Cult, which I urge everyone to stop what they're doing, pause and go find it and follow. And we're going to get into how much of a cultural king and fountain of knowledge that Willy is.
Thank you. That was an amazing intro.
Pleasure. Well deserved.
And it was all started by accident.
Oh.
Yeah.
How so?
The Instagram, which is the more visible portion, or maybe because I have other jobs, some people just think, well, it's mostly about social media. It's really, something that was started because I wasn't really into the culture of sharing your lunch in selfies. I was quite private as a person. The first few years that Instagram was around, I refused to actually start Instagram, which sounds really weird for a lot of people, to gain that amount of following. But initially, I just didn't like what Instagram stood for.
Too much avocados on toast.
That's it. Yeah. I called it the two S's, the selfies and salads and selfies.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to be part of the salads and selfies. Originally, I was doing a travel Instagram, so it would be whenever, because I work in fashion, so whenever I would travel to LA or New York or interesting events, then I would kind of, capture those, do like a travel diary. And one day I thought, well, why don't I share my visual research? Because I've been obsessed with magazines, photography, any form of image making since I was 13. First kind of visual shock that stayed with me was the Comme des Garçons advertising in the 90s. So they never used clothing as images. It was often photography from famous photographers, black and white imagery, a bird, really random stuff, which
but with
stood
the
out.
Comme logo on the bottom, and that would be the advert.
And it just was like simple Comme des Garçons at the bottom.
So it's like anti-advertising.
That's it. And so for a 13-year-old, in Africa, reading my sister's magazine, it was like a bit of a shock. It was like, oh, wow, so you can do fashion in a different way instead of photography. So since then, I started buying magazines obsessively with pocket money. When I moved to Europe, I carried on. And when, computers and the digital age, I did it more from a Tumblr perspective. I still do it.
You still have a Tumblr?
I do. I don't feed it as much, but I can spend about an hour. I find it relaxing. Like some people garden. I just go on the internet and I find photographers and images and what I respond to. So I do visual research just as a hobby. So I thought, let me share it on Instagram. Put it all on Instagram. It wasn't an image dump because it was kind of gradual. And then the industry started following the account. And by the industry, I think the first person was a designer called Suzanne Deacon. So she was working for Marc Jacobs, Camille Bido-Waddington, the stylist, and then Purple Fashion, the team. So with fashion, it's like, it just takes one and then everybody else.
And then it spreads like wildfire.
So it snowballed into, the rest of the teams following William Cult. Afterwards it was Gucci and then the Gucci team, etc., which led to collaborations.
So people would, we certainly will. People would fall upon your Instagram, reach out and ask you to consult, come in, tell them sort of what direction to go in?
Not really. I was, there was a whole era of the mood board era, I would call it, when, a lot of the discussions were that design studios would use Instagram as sort of a mood board. So you would go and you would get the image, your visual research. A lot of people didn't really use Tumblr, or a lot of people didn't know of it, or you had Pinterest or you had Instagram. So I call that the sort of the mood board era, but I think fashion has shifted now, where Instagram is more like, what's that professional website that everybody uses for LinkedIn?
Oh, LinkedIn, okay.
Nowadays, people use Instagram, and that would be my advice for anybody who starts an Instagram as a stylist, is just put your best work, feed your work, make it your website of sorts. If you don't
Totally.
have a website, because that's how we find people. Like
So
when I'm looking
creatives should
for-
use Instagram as their portfolio.
That's it.
Almost like their LinkedIn.
It's your visual LinkedIn. So I think it's shifted from that. I think some people still pull from there for their visual research, but when I did it between 2012, I think I was the first account to use images which weren't taken with my camera.
Yeah.
So that was the only difference that my Instagram was. But it exists already on Tumblr. I just took Tumblr and used it on Instagram, and then people on Instagram understood that, oh yeah, we can use it for other things and sell it in selfies.
Yeah.
Which seems evident now, but I think not a lot of people were doing it at that point.
Through the Instagram, that's how you became connected to the industry. And it's also an incredible networking space. Or were you connected before?
I was connected before because, funny enough, my background is actually a BA in women's wear. So I studied fashion after discovering images as a 13-year-old. I decided to start sketching obsessively since I was 16. So I would do hours of just drawing and mostly fashion figures. And then I started doing my own fake collections before the collections would come out.
How were they fake?
Well, no, because I never produced them.
Oh.
Well, I mean, fictional ones. They were just drawings.
Gotcha.
And then I would look at Paris Fashion where you can see if what I was thinking was in line with what they were thinking, or if I was, kind of understanding the whole process of designing a collection. So I did a BA in women's wear, and then I worked in women's wear for about 10 years before going into streetwear. So fashion was already kind of part of my world before, I got into the social media aspect and the communication aspect. Yeah. Instagram helped, basically, the networking and meeting people.
I personally use Instagram a lot. Maybe too much. Some people have a screen time on their phone where it gives you a warning, but I can't bear because I'll just be miserable all the time. But I was talking to a guest earlier today who says Instagram's on the way out. And I wanted to pick your brain because you've kind of mastered the art of Insta. What do you think of that concept, or does it come in cyclical nature, so it has a resurgence and then it goes?
I think for me, I look at the common sense. Does it serve a purpose? And people have to kind of remember that, just because something is new, it's better in the sense that TikTok comes along, people start saying, Instagram is dead, but with TikTok, you don't have photography. With TikTok, brands are struggling to even translate what they do through Instagram. So I often, at the moment, because nothing can really be predicted, I would compare it to what Twitter is, or used to be, now that Elon Musk has bought it. Who knows what it's going to be, but it's like what Twitter used to be for writers and journalists and the news. Instagram is for the fashion industry. Yeah, so it's a platform where, you can link your website, your store. We use it. We're just going to start using it differently, which goes back to the idea of, your LinkedIn for creatives to put their work on there, and then in order for the rest of us to find them and then book people, because a lot of the casting happens on Instagram, a lot of the picking photographers. When if I'm working with a brand and I want to pitch a photographer, I send the Instagram account,
it's become
not their
a standard
website.
now.
And a lot of people don't actually have websites. A lot of people don't bother with websites. So I think it serves a purpose, and I doubt that if they don't mess it up too much with Zuckerberg buying it, if they understand it as a tool, potentially it could just, remain for quite a while until something else comes along.
True. So when I was putting this podcast together for Axel, you were one of the first people I wanted to talk to.
Thank you.
One, because I don't know if we've ever met in real life before. I mean, I saw you at Campbell Addy's opening the other day, which I feel like was the first time I saw you. That was the first time
actually in real life.
Yeah. But something that always struck me about you as an entity was the power of collaboration, which is something, from my perspective anyway, you do incredibly well, because you wear many creative hats. You've had a long-standing relationship with Gucci. You do screen grab for ES magazine, which is an amazing new iteration under Ben Cobb. Yes. You worked with Fantastic Man, art director at Jordan Luca.
That magazine and as an ongoing, I think those are the permanent kind of ongoing relationships. And then this indie magazine.
Is it like having loads of boyfriends at the same time, and you have to keep them happy?
It's having loads of interesting, demanding friends in life.
Okay.
Because each one requires a different kind of research and a different kind of approach. So I was late last night. I was watching, and I'm obsessed with Trixie Mattel and Katya, the show.
Oh yeah.
And exactly. She was saying there's a difference between stress and anxiety. Stress is when you have a lot to do and your day's busy and it's kind of stressful, but you're not anxious. You know, you go from appointments to appointments and you kind of, you know, keep things moving. And anxiety is more this kind of paralyzing fear. And you can have an empty day, but have, you know, experience anxiety. And thank God I'm not in any of those projects. I never really feel anxious. So that's a good thing.
But
so
you feel
it's stress.
Ah, okay. Just of the sheer amount of work
it gets stressful because of the balls you have to keep in the air. But I also know I don't say yes to everything, and I also know when to allocate time. By now I kind of know when I have overreached in terms of my list, because it happens monthly. So I'll sit down and I'll see what is it that I have this month, and then, you know, work accordingly, because every project takes time. If you want to do a good job, there's also the process of, you know, researching, conceptualizing, think through it. So you don't just make stuff for the sake of making stuff,
and also overpromise and don't deliver
as well. And it's sad if you go through the motions, if you don't really connect with everything that, you know, you have to do, or every piece that you want to write about. That's why, I mean, I would never make a really good journalist in terms of fashion pieces. I'm not going to be writing about, you know, a shoe or a trend for the sake of it. If the research to get to that text doesn't interest me, then I'm not interested. I'm a bit of a diva on that one. It's sort of like, give me the topic or let me choose a topic. Right. But I also keep in mind that, you know, the magazine needs something interesting, or the read. I have utmost respect for people's time. So that's how I work with my Instagram. That's how I work with my text. I hate time wasters. Like when you get to the end of an article and you're like, well, there you go, 10 minutes of my life, I'm never getting back. So Instagram has a lot of that. The sort of the noise. That's what I call the noise. So it's like, I want attention. The person seeks attention but gives nothing back. And I try not to do that. Even though I keep it light and fun and, you know, memes and fun and that kind of thing. But I want people to walk away and at least having been enriched or having learned something with the kind of content that I put out there.
But how do you approach the content? Is it a case of if it serves you, then you'll post it? Or are you well aware sometimes that this is going to do well, I'm going to put it out just for the pure engagement?
I never know what's going to do well. You know, it's evolved from, okay, no selfie, no salads, to, you know, references. And then at some point, references felt tired for me to be using references. So now I've gone into, and then there was the era of conversation. So I used to have these long discussions on my feed. So launch a topic and let people comment. And I think that's when cancel culture, woke culture, everything else was on the rise, and people were debating all the time on Instagram and starting fights and canceling each other. So I kind of harnessed that and sort of started having conversations with people on you know, the hashtag #MeToo, BLM, etc. Now I'm working more in promoting young artists, photographers, POC photographers, especially focus on that, and kind of using it as, okay, I have this audience, and it's not the number, it's kind of the quality, because I know that the industry people look at the Instagram, so I kind of put forward certain photographers which I think would be interesting for people to, you know, to work with for publications. And under that, obviously there's a message of what I think photography today should be in terms of press and media, etc. So it's never that obvious, and it's never for likes.
Gotcha.
I've trained myself not to post things for likes or for.
It's a slippery road to go down.
It's horrible.
In terms of
You
taste,
become dependent.
yeah, exactly. In terms of taste, I think you have impeccable taste. And whenever I meet people with impeccable taste, I have to ask where they look to for their inspiration.
Yeah.
So growing up, did anyone strike you, or nowadays do you discover a new artist you think, wow, they're really great?
When I look at work, it's a process. So first I look at the quality of the execution that the person has put in. So it could be a picture of this glass of water, it could be a 20-minute video. I look at first the execution. So do they have standards? Then is the work interesting? And then is the work kind of original, or there's a few boxes to tick, because sometimes someone can be technically good, but the work is really boring. So you can be a really great wedding photographer, but I'm not gonna be interested in your photograph because you take a good photograph. And does the work say something? Is it interesting conceptually, etc.? So I think I've trained myself to have an eye, and I think everybody can pretty much do it by looking at enough good work.
Yeah.
Because I teach as well research. That's another thing that I don't really have on my profile, is I give a creative research class with Polimoda in Florence.
Oh, wow.
So I work with students. That's very demanding.
Okay, I was going to say
demanding.
That's a long distance friend that you need to keep happy.
Yeah, that's demanding, and it's classes of 14 kids, and I do about 3-4 classes, and I oversee their midterm and final projects. So my lectures are not me standing there and kind of imparting knowledge.
Yeah.
It's more one-on-one. So each student is like a client, and then we work through a concept to try and help them, grow as an artist and an image maker. And that's where I have to teach them the difference between, doing work which just looks great, because Instagram has a lot of nice picture, but nice is not enough anymore. You gotta dig a little bit deeper and kind of create something which has substance and is interesting, but also is well executed. So to answer your question, in terms of taste, I can't tell you I've looked at a specific person and mimicked their choices. It's more, I can look at a picture and tell you it's a good one, it's a shitty one. Anna Wintour probably has the same thing.
Yeah.
Edward, and if you're a magazine editor, the guys at Fantastic Man are incredible. I mean, it's Gert and Job, like the way they, Job designs a layout is an art form. When you look at Fantastic Man, the dimensions, like, why is it not 0.5 millimeter bigger? Because he took that in account, and the borders, the choice of colors. So I think your eye, once you train yourself to have a good eye, and then you start getting creative within that, then you know what you're doing. And I think it takes absorbing. But like I tell my students, don't look at crappy work. Don't look at, because that's not going to help you, because you're going to be absorbing the wrong kind of work, which then will lead to you not developing a very good taste or eye.
Do you have any guilty pleasures, though, with all of this sort of...
I know, highbrow.
Yeah, which is a really great place to orbit around, but do you go home and think, you know what, I need to watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Exactly.
For me, it's Jerry Seinfeld. It's, at the moment, it's the show.
That is an incredible show.
That's hilarious. So I do like, to watch things for the sake of watching them. I mean, I like Atlanta, but Atlanta is a piece, it's art. It's art, what, Daniel Glover is doing. So that's maybe highbrow. But I do like to look at things which just don't engage me from a critical point of view, from just to be relaxed.
So we're going to play a quick game of Instagram roulette.
Okay.
Where you pull up your Instagram, you're going to scroll through, and when I say stop, you've got to land on a post and tell me something about it.
Okay, cool.
And show everybody at home.
Okay.
Stop. Oh.
Is it a halfway?
Okay, I like this one.
Oh, okay. So this is that's Michelle Obama actually, and cosplaying Beyonce. Why did I pick this? Because I thought that was a very unusual way for a first lady to be depicted.
And it was in 2017.
The photo was in 2017, but I posted it in February. So I had never actually seen it before.
It's a great photo.
And I just thought for a first lady, there's no first lady, US first lady that's ever been depicted in this way.
Love that.
So,
Well, Willy, thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute
thank
pleasure.
you for having me.
And hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.